Thank you everybody for joining us. And hi, good evening. My name is Kirti Tripathi. As Sanchit directed, clearly stated, it's Kirti. And yes, also, we would like this to be an interactive session in case you want to bring your pets to the screen or probably turn the screen towards your pets. Please feel free to. We'd love to see the animals that you live with. We'd love that. And also, I think my dog Candy here has a secret. Candy. Candy. Yes. All right. Hi. So this is Candy and here's Russell. What we'll be starting off today is, oh, who do I see there? Aman? Hi, I guess you are on mute.
It's his name is Dobby. 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 Dobby.
He is so cute. He is so cute. Who do we have here, Priya? A baby.
Yeah, he is 60 days old. Baby. His name is Posto.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, do we see a bird here? Do we see a bird here? Hi, Rishi.
Yeah, hi. His name is Time.
Oh, wow. Time. Does he fly? Does Time fly?
Not yet. Time will fly soon. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, Meghna. Thank you so much for bringing your, wow, oh wow. We have a cat, we have cats there as well. We have a lot of cats there. So,
Yeah,
please,
I have 3 cats here. As you can see, so I have Pushkin, I have Garfield, and this one is Madam Maya.
Oh wow, Madam Maya. And Minu, who's that?
Yeah, that's me, Deepti.
Oh, hi. Hi, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming in with us.
He is Mr. Oreo. Thank you so much for the session.
Great. And definitely, please feel free to ask your questions. We'll have a directed Q&A at the end, towards the end of the session. And definitely, we'd love to take sessions here. So that is Mr. Oreo. Sorry, Oreo.
Oreo.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Excellent. So what I really wanted to start the session rather with is how do we approach dogs, stranger dogs probably to start with, right? So this is a directive that is a traditional approach that we've always been used to, that we see a dog and we tend to make them make them sniff our hands, right? So okay, so what happens is dogs are excellent sniffers. They do not want us to be approaching them by their hands to sniff us. So probably what can be a better approach here is the pat pause method. So for example, if I spot another stranger dog, I'd rather pat my thighs and see if the dog wants to start an interaction with me. So that can look like, hey doggy, whatever. And if the dog is willing to come to interact with me, the dog can come, wagging his tail, probably lowering his body, trying to be submissive. And then when the dog comes, you can try to pet the dog, avoiding the head area, and pet him on the neck or the shoulder, and pet probably for 3 seconds and then wait. See if the dog wants more of it. If the dog wants more of it, you can go ahead. If the dog wants to get away, let them. If the dog shows you any signs of avoidance, please let them go, because it's better that the interactions are always 2 ways. It is not forced on them, right? So a few more tips about some anxious dogs that you might see, some skittish, shy dogs that are very anxious about people are approaching them. So dogs do not like head-on meetings. Dogs do not like that. So that can be dog to human interactions, dog to dog interactions, dog to other animal interactions. Hence, you see dogs the dogs prefer sniffing the butt area of the other dog if they want to meet the other dog, right? So it is the same with humans as well. In case you want to approach a stranger dog, try to approach sideways. Do not approach head on, right? The other thing to keep in mind is do not bend over or loom your body over the head of the body, because that ways you are just becoming bigger for the dog, and that can be intimidating, right? Next can be, do not try to pet over the head. Most of the dogs do not like it. So in fact, it's the same for our dogs as well. In case you go ahead squashing their heads or probably reaching out for their heads, they might show avoidance. They're like, okay, not this time probably. So this is a sign, this is a signal that we should pick up, and then we should respect the dog's space and probably take a step back. Here's Candy, and she's like, okay, that's a lot of talking. Good. Next, any questions here? If you want to, probably place them in the chat section, and we will answer them in the later section of the section that we have. Okay, so the other thing that I want to discuss about is the human wellness section and the mental enrichment section of dogs, because of our companion animals, probably not just dogs, because there's no partiality here. So yes, companion animals in general, mental enrichment, or probably more like nature. So this is basically where we talk about the natural behavior, normal behaviors that animals tend to do, but then once we have domesticated them, they do not get more legal outlets to practice those behaviors. So what are those? Right, probably you might see your dogs licking, chewing, shredding, destroying things, digging, sniffing. There are a lot of natural, normal behaviors that dogs like doing, like to explore their environment through. So being a pet guardian here, not a pet owner probably, being a pet guardian, it is important that we meet the needs of those companion animals in a legal outlet, or a probably legal fashion, legal outlet that you can give them. So I have a few options here that I wanted to show. Probably this will take a second. Just give me a second, please. I see a lot of good. I see a lot of good dogs on the screen. Okay. Just a few seconds. Some technical problems here. All right. So here, as you might see, I have a few sections here. So for example, your dogs like to shred things, right? Your dogs like to shred things. Probably take a cardboard pack. Yes, of course, of course. Take some food, take some dry kibbles, and probably put them and give your dog this cardboard to shred. Ensure there are no stapler pins attached to it, of course, and give it to your dog. Let them shred. I mean, also it's important that you supervise the activity and they do not try to eat and ingest it. That is very important. Hence, supervision is a must. So Russell really likes to chew stuff. Next is, you can actually buy a snuffle mat, which probably replicates grass. So for example, what I can do here is probably sprinkle some dry food for my dog to sniff. So this will look like, probably, if you can see that. So definitely, this is basically what calms them down. Sniffing, shredding, chewing, licking, etc. Next is a very basic DIY game that you can make out of a towel and some treats. So for example, okay, Russell, can you move out of the space? Okay. Russell, can you move out of the space, please? Thank you. So you can actually take a towel and just scatter some treats and probably roll and give it to your dog. Probably let them sniff and try to take food out of that. So what is happening here is basically We are letting our dogs engage in the natural, normal behaviors that they were meant to do outside. With domestication, we have taken away that choice of dogs being dogs, and we always serve their food in meal bowls, right? So what is happening is every meal served in a meal bowl is an opportunity that you've just lost. Probably we can make it fun, make meal times fun, and probably ditch the bowl. Right. So here's one thing for you, for everybody here. Probably go back after this session and probably try to come out with some new innovative ideas and try to feed your dogs out of the bowls. And this is the same for cats as well and other animals. Any companion animal that you have, try to meet their needs by replicating the natural behaviors that they were used to before domestication. Right, so you see that their anxiety levels will decrease, their boredom will lessen, their confidence will increase, and they will have more motivation, they will have more curiosity to give behaviors. Right, so definitely please post those stories, add Super Tales, add Plum, and do share your stories with everybody, because we would want to share this message throughout with every companion animal guardian out there. And yes, just a second. Also, Sanjeev, please keep me updated on, if I'm running out of time, or probably because that is going to be very important for us, for everybody here. And yes,
If we see dogs on the screen, I don't think you're running out of time.
Great. It's great that everybody's on the same page here, right? Okay, so can we also go through the chat section in case? Okay, what if they eat the cardboard? Okay, so it's important that we supervise our dogs for every new activity that we give, right? Because a very small percentage of dogs or other animals, definitely everybody included, will get into this habit of actually shredding and ingesting the pieces. So it's important that you try to keep your pups, animals safe, and do not give them those activities again. So for example, a better replication for that can be, can you give them frozen carrot sticks probably, or probably some kale leaves or cabbage leaves to shred. Those are easier and safer options, right? Also, okay. Next, too friendly. Cool. We'll come back to the questions that we've asked in the section, like towards the end of the session. I hope everybody's fine with that. Right. So coming back to the human healthness part. Sorry, Sanjeev, were you saying something?
No.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So coming to the human wellness part of that, I'm sure everybody knows it, that having companion animals makes our lives long lasting and it promotes health, right? So for example, companion animals have a physical, physiological and a psychological impact on us. Dog owners probably spend more time outside on their walks. I hope everybody's aligned to that, right? And everybody is like, the guardians are now, they feel responsible towards caring for somebody, and then they feel needed, they feel they're useful to some point probably, right? So definitely that has a very positive impact on our life. Then one strives to remain or become healthy in order to continue in caring for their dogs. So that is another thing. Next is positive physical contact. Okay, what is that? Positive physical contact. So basically a touch wherein the guardian and the dog and the companion animal, they are in close proximity and the touch is welcomed. It is not about that we are trying to cuddle our dog, irrespective of if they like that or not. It is welcoming. It is basically a two-way interaction. It is not forced, basically, right? So that sort of contact is known to have a calming effect on us. So basically what that does is it increases the feel-good hormones, the oxytocins, the serotonins, and it lessens the stress hormone, the cortisol levels. So definitely it has a positive impact on us. I think I'll be done. Over to you, Doctor. Dr. Shamika will now take this up.
All right. So, hi everyone. It's really nice to see so many pets, or rather to be introduced to so many little pets around here. So what I will be doing is I'll be walking you through some really common concerns, health concerns that you need to look out for in your dog. And just before we do that, I have a few questions for you. So what I'd like you to do is just think about these answers and see if you've done any of this. Or if you really want to, you can actually just check on your pet right now. So question number one, are your pet's teeth clean and white? So have you brushed your pet's teeth lately? If you have, very good. If not, think about that. We'll talk about it just in a bit. The next thing that I'd like you to look into are your pet's ears. Are they clear? Are they light pink? Because that's normal. If not, again, we'll talk about that later, and it might be time for a vet visit if there's anything wrong with the ears. A very important thing for you to look into is checking for ticks and fleas. Ticks and fleas are little insects that you may find on your pet's body. So again, have you looked at that lately? Have you checked your dog or your cats for ticks, fleas, or any other insects, anything that you might find crawling about their bodies? Because that is, again, important, not just for your pets, but for you as well. And the fourth important point is, have you taken your pets for a walk lately? Or do you walk them every day in terms of dogs? Do you take your cats out? Do you play with them? So like Kirti just explained, there's so much that's involved in their behavior and how important it is to take them, to play with them, whether it's physical or mental engagement. But did you know that there's also like a health aspect to it? And that's why, that's what I'm going to be talking to you about. So if you have any questions regarding whatever it is that I'm going to explain to you over the next couple of minutes, do feel free to just send in a message in the chat window, and we'll get to it when we're doing the Q&A session. Right? So really common health concerns. Like I mentioned, first things first, have you cleaned your pet's teeth lately? This is something that a lot of times people tend to forget. While you don't forget to brush your own teeth, you don't really pay enough importance to brushing your dog's teeth, either because you just don't know that it's important to brush their teeth, or you're not aware of what you need to do. So really simple things, there are a lot of options available for you. You could just pick up dog toothbrushes and toothpastes. That's the important point here is dog toothbrush and toothpaste, or pet toothbrush and toothpaste, and definitely not human ones, because the ingredients that you find in human toothpaste are not very good for them. All right. You also have dental treats, and I think a lot of people will be quite familiar with using dental treats and chew toys for their dogs. So that's fine, but always remember that, you know, schedule an annual dental cleaning or a regular dental checkup with your veterinarian every time you go there, because it's important to keep oral health under control. Next important thing is their diet. So a lot of times people believe that milk and chapatis and rotis and things like that are really good for their dogs. Just because you're eating it doesn't mean that it's good for your pets. The important bit here is, remember that commercial food a lot of times is created to be balanced, for that particular pet's needs. So always make sure that there is at least some amount of commercial food in the pet's diet. And of course, you can introduce human foods to their diets but you always need to know what you need to put in. So there's always a list of ingredients that you absolutely cannot use. Milk tops that list. Spices, sweets, anything that you would consider snacks is probably not good for them. So always check based on what species you have. So check what is okay for them to eat, check what's not okay for them to eat, because every time you accidentally or every time you feed them something that's not okay, you are setting them up for a stomach upset, and it is going to be distressing for you to watch them suffer through, say, vomiting or diarrhea or anything like that. So keep an eye out on their diet, make sure that it is appropriate for them. And if you have any doubts, if you have any concerns regarding exactly what you should and should not feed them, don't hesitate to reach out to us. So you can reach out to us, book an appointment with us, or reach out to your veterinarians, speak to them about what's okay, what's not okay, so that you're on track with your pet's health. All right. Like Kirti mentioned earlier, exercise is very, very important. And an important bit here with regards to exercise, whether it is through walks or whether it is through playing with them with toys or anything that provides mental engagement, is that it also helps expend their energies and helps them eat better. So when you have concerns that your pet is not eating their food properly, we also need to take into account that it's not just whatever food they require, it's also the food they ingest is also based on the amount of energy they expend. So while you do have guidelines on what you need to feed and how much you need to feed, and I'm sure everyone's looked at packets behind the dog foods that you purchase or the cat foods, and it's got little numbers there that tell you how much you need to feed them per day. That's a good guideline, but if your pet is likely to be running around a lot, if your pet is exercising themselves a lot, they may actually need more food. That quantity may not be enough. However, on the other hand, if your pet doesn't really do much other than like 2 walks in a day, that might become too much and you might land up overfeeding them. So you always need to weigh in not just how much they eat, but also exactly how much exercise they get. So again, this is an area where observe your pets for cues. They always give you cues on what's okay for them and what's not. A lot of times you find that they may not eat their entire meals completely. And at this point, you need to stop and check, is there a medical reason for it? Or are you just giving too much food and they're just not able to eat what you're giving them? So check on this. Keep this in mind. These are really small things that you can do to keep your pet healthy, and therefore a healthy pet means you feel better as well, because you're not worried about their health and their general well-being altogether. The next bit are 3 very, very important things in pet care. And these have very interesting impacts on humans as well. I'm sure that everyone who's got a pet here right now will be familiar with the terms deworming, vaccination, and tick and flea control. But are you really aware of exactly why we stress so much on this? Why veterinarians always keep stressing on deworming your pets regularly, vaccinating them, and why pretty much every vet consultation is going to definitely involve one question from your veterinarian about whether or not you've had any tick or flea control done. So all these 3, deworming and ticks and fleas, are actually quite connected. So starting with deworming, it's basically worms that you could find in the environment. The environment has a lot of organisms as such. And when pets ingest any of it from their environment, they could they tend to ingest the eggs, which kind of hatch in the body and cause problems. These problems generally tend to be that the worms get stuck onto the intestinal walls and suck all the nutrition that they're eating. So, which is one important bit. Another way that pets can get worms is through eating uncooked meat. And at this point, it is a concern for humans as well, because uncooked meat can give the same type of worms to people as well as their pets. So always remember that when you're feeding, if you're feeding raw, please don't. There's a lot of worms in any uncooked meat in this country, and it is worth cooking rather than having them suffer through that. Same goes for humans. It affects you. Essentially, this works with raw meats, raw eggs, raw anything. All right. Vaccinations here, the important bit in vaccinations is the anti-rabies vaccination. Rabies is a very, very serious disease, and I don't want to put a damper on things, but it is something that is important to talk about, because people, there is no cure for it, but it is 100% preventable through a vaccination, and it is spread primarily through dogs. So get your pets vaccinated. And if you do have any street dogs in your area, if you have any cats in your area that are not pets, and you think that you can hold on to them long enough to get them vaccinated, please do so, because you're not just protecting the cats or dogs, you're protecting your pets, you're protecting yourself, because rabies can spread to humans through bites. Coming back to tick and flea control, remember I told you that deworming connects to ticks and fleas. So fleas can have tapeworms in them, and when they bite or when they're swallowed by anyone, actually, that is humans or pets, you can get tapeworms, or your pet can get tapeworms, which is why tick and flea control along with deworming is very important. And a small tip here is that when you deworm your pets, it's usually a good idea to deworm yourself as well, so that the entire household is dewormed at the same time, and that any infection that could potentially be around is gotten rid of immediately in one go. Ticks are these little bigger insects. They're usually quite ugly, and they can spread diseases primarily to dogs, but there are these rare diseases that they can also spread to humans. Again, treatment for these kind of things are quite difficult. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I'd say it's very difficult, and it's going to be a really long, drawn out process, whether it's treating the dog or treating the human being involved. So always remember that these are small things that you can check at home. So always check your pet for ticks and fleas, and these are things that you can check on every day, at least once a day. Check behind their ears, check between their paws, check over their backs, near the rump, near their tails. So all these regions are important hotspots where you can find ticks that could pop up. And essentially, this will help you assess whether anything is off with your pet or not at this point. So when you do find that everything's going well, all good. And the best part about doing this every day is that it helps you figure out if something's off much, much faster than you otherwise would. So essentially, just go with that. And yeah, so if you do have any questions, I think we are ready to start with our Q&A session now. Shall we walk through the chats, Kirti?
Yes, sure. I will. Um,
In Kirti and Dr. Shamika, we have a lot, many cues.
That's all right.
so, doctor, there's a question here. My GSD is 12 months old. We used to feed her chicken soup food twice a day. She is not eating properly from last 3 weeks. However, she is active and normal. What could be the reason for not eating well?
All right. So, Shalini, I'd suggest that if there's been any change in her diet or anything in her environment that could have that's suddenly been different over the last 3 weeks, it could potentially lead to her not eating properly. But not eating properly is a very large term. So I need to know more about, uh, is she completely not eating at all? Is she just choosy about her meals? Is she just skipping a couple of meals, or is she eating every meal but not completing it? So there are a lot of options here. So I would suggest that she could have also just gotten a mild indigestion by eating something she shouldn't have, and that is quite common among young dogs, essentially because they like playing with so many things, and they could accidentally ingest something. So if it's been going on for about 3 weeks now, then I'd suggest that book a session with us. We can like properly discuss it over the entire 30 minutes and figure out what's going on with your GST.
Yes, of course. So for everybody here, you can actually go to our website, Supertails, and actually get a free vet session in case, I mean, you don't know where to start off with. You can actually get in touch and schedule a session for yourself. This goes the same for training as well. So yes. Ishita says if she can unmute herself and she has a query. Of course you can. Yes. Ishita, are you there?
Yes, hi. Hi, Kirti. Hi, hello. Hi,
Hi.
Dr. Usha. So, my question is like my beagle. She gave birth recently, and she gave actually birth to quadruplets. But we had 3 now, and one of the major concern about the puppies is that one of the puppies, uh, he is actually he's crawling, but he's unable to walk like the other two. And one of the most concerned part is that the two parts of his legs, the outer part of the legs, it's slightly slanting, like he's unable to crawl with those two legs, I mean the backward legs. So is there any kind of medical condition, or is it just the development is late? Is there anything concerned, like we should be concerned about that?
All right. Ishita, exactly how old are the puppies right now?
They are 15 days old.
15 days old. All right. So, yes, there could be a slight developmental delay, but I would honestly recommend that they actually, this particular puppy specifically gets a physical examination done so that we can figure out whether there is an underlying condition or not. Because you said the puppy is a beagle, right? Purebred?
Yes, it's a beagle.
All right. So essentially what happens with purebred animals right now is that the gene pool is a little small at the moment, and which means that there could be underlying genetic conditions that we need to look out for as well. So important thing here today would be that as soon as possible, do schedule. Actually, what you could do is, one, you could either take them off, take this particular puppy to get a physical examination as soon as you can, or I'm sure when they're due for their vaccinations, they'll anyway be given a physical exam. So you can just make sure to figure out, and at that point can rule out whether there has been any, there is any genetic condition associated with this.
Oh, okay. So I would definitely go ahead and book a session with you if possible. And
Absolutely.
I would also talk to the breeder if we could get any pedigree analysis of the puppy. And thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dr. Chumika, for the advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Dr. Keith, you're on mute.
Keith,
I'm so sorry. So moving on, Anando Biswas asks, my dog is too friendly with other dogs. However, not all dogs find it the same way. Anything we can do for this, or this is a normal behavior? So whatever gets practiced gets perfect. If hence we ask that pet parents, while you take your dogs out for a walk while the dog is on a leash, it is important that we do not let your puppy, your dog, meet every other person or every other dog that they come across, because now the puppy has an expectation setting that while we are on walk, he's on a leash, he or she is on a leash, he can meet everybody and anybody, right? So now what we can do is basically teach the dog something else that you want. In place of, if he wants to go meet another dog, probably be fun, be more exciting, be more interesting than the other dog for your dog, right? So get your dogs focus on you. How can you do that? Use treats, use food, etc. You can teach skills for that. Okay, so why dogs sniff the butt when they meet other dogs? So basically, they have glands located near the, like at the rear end, and they sniff the smells there and get to know the temperament and every other information, every other basic information about the other dog, and hence they like to sniff the butt and do not like to approach head on with the other dog. So Ame Jaju, asks, my dog gets scared of firecrackers. Any tips? How can I help him? So Dr. Shamika, please feel free to pitch in anywhere. Where would you like to, depending on the questions, right? So noise sensitivity can be genetic, can be linked to a past history or something. So definitely there can be tips that we can use to manage the intensity level and how you can soothe your dog better. There can be a lot of different things that we can do here, and a basic exercise that we can also definitely. This is a lot vague. I'm not sure about how sensitive the dog is to the outside noise, and is he sensitive to vacuums? Is he sensitive to doorbells, or probably sudden sounds outside? So I'll need more info on that probably. Right. So moving on, Swarnashish asks, I have a Spitz 9 months old female. She is not feeding herself from last 2 to 3 weeks. Please suggest.
all right. So when you say not feeding herself from the last 2 to 3 weeks, is she, so again, a lot of questions that come up here that I'll need information on is what sort of diet do you feed her? When you say not feeding herself, does that mean that somebody in the house hand feeds her because she's not eating on her own? If that is so, then please stop hand feeding her, because you need to teach her to eat on her own. So I think Keith can also like chime in here in terms of how to get your dog to stop, how to stop hand feeding your dog and allowing them to eat on their own. And for the record, it is perfectly okay if your dog skips a couple of meals trying to be stubborn about this. The important thing is that you don't succumb to that and feed them just because they're not eating. You need to be strict with yourself, and you need to make sure that everybody in the house is strict and does not give them anything other than their meals at that time. So if you do have any issues with your pet not eating on their own, then keep a watch on exactly what foods they're eating. There is also, they could be filling themselves up on snacks and treats that you may be offering them. So cut down on that. see what sort of food they're giving. Is it the food that they don't like at this point, or is it just generally they've gotten used to somebody hand feeding them and they'd rather not take the effort anymore? So a lot of things. There are a few things for you to keep in mind. Like I said, be strict. Don't succumb to hand feeding them. Stop any treats or snacks that you're giving at this point. So you can use kibble as treats whenever necessary, but try to avoid all the other treats and snacks that you might be giving, because they might be filling their stomachs with that. This should help with to some extent, but for more detailed discussion on this, then please do book a session with us, because we'll be able to like focus completely on your pet and figure out what's going on there and whether there is a medical reason to all this or not.
Yes, of course. There's something that I'd like to add to all the questions that we are getting here. So every context will be different. Every dog's personal case will be different, will differ from each other's, right? Hence, it's important that we get more context about what is happening, what is not happening, right? A dog can be calm, can seem calm to me, but then for other person, that dog can be submissive, right? So hence, what appears to the general eye can seem different from what exactly might be happening. Hence, we would want you to get in touch with us for a more personalized approach, right? Because we can actually give you basic guidelines here, but then do they work for your case? Do they work for your own individual dog? We'll have to talk more about that. Hence, the answers are here. It's not like yes, there's nothing else to it. So yes,
Yeah.
Vipul asks, my dog starts barking whenever he senses someone is outside. Okay, so is this an ongoing process, or does it have a pattern to it? So for example, evenings outside is more noisy. For example, just saying, evening it's more noisy outside, and hence he's like, whenever he hears something, he's startled, and then he's like, bow, bow, bow. Or probably he's sleeping, he hears something outside, maybe a picker, truck, anything, some sudden noise, and the dog is startled, and then he starts barking. So what exactly is this, right? Hence, we need more information about how do we deal this exact issue. So Chaya asks, my dog is 16 years old and his teeth are falling. What should I feed him to ensure proper nutrients? Dr.
Wow.
Shamita.
Lovely to see that he's 16 years old. But yes, teeth falling out for a senior dog is quite common. Easiest things to do is that whatever usual food he's used to, just make it soft, make it such that he doesn't really need to bite and chew anymore. So if it's kibble, soak the kibble in some warm water and really soften it up. If he's able to chew on mashed food, that's great. So if you're giving any sort of home cooked diet, then really mash it up, make it something that essentially the only thing you need to do is make sure that it is something that he doesn't need to bite into. So you may have to stop with any treats or snacks that you're giving him right now, because he may not be able to handle it. But you can give him a completely balanced meal with whatever he's having, and just make the consistency easy for him to eat, or make it more liquid, or at least mush kind of consistency, so that he can quickly eat it up without having to struggle too much to eat. Another thing is, you may also want to consider the quantities that you're giving him. He may not really be interested in eating too much food at this point. So if his appetite does seem like it's reduced a little bit, it's all right, and just go ahead with giving him whatever it is that he is comfortable having at this point.
So moving on to the next, Mandvi asks, my pup is teething. When is it a good time to introduce brushing?
Okay, so you can actually just start up with finger brushing right away. So just use your finger and start playing around with the teeth, whatever teeth are coming out. And this is a good practice, because as the puppy grows older, and if you start introducing brushing to them at a later stage, they may not be comfortable, they may not allow you to do this. So as a puppy, it's a very good time to start poking and prodding all their body parts and examining it, so that in the future, in case you need to examine it for any illness, or you need to say you need to open the mouth and check for any illness in there, if you need to if they by any chance have a cavity or anything like that, you will be more comfortable handling your dog's mouth. And this is important because you know your pet better than we do, and we will be relying on you to give us the right type of information regarding your pet's health. And yeah, so just start the brushing right away. You can introduce toothpaste and dental powders a little later, but you can start finger brushing right now.
So Meenu here asks, could you please share some tips on how we can do some basic treatment and care minor injuries of stray dogs? So she feeds stray babies, 15 dogs and 3 cats, but she can't still prevent them from getting hurt as they are on the streets, unfortunately. Big injuries, I do call vet, but for small injuries or to say basic care, is there anything that she can do?
Okay. All right.
Probably
So
first,
15 dogs and 3 cats is like amazing, like really amazing. But yeah, so if you do find any small injuries, what you could do is just keep a bottle of betadine on hand and just wash it up. So small injuries can just be cleaned up with some, if it's dirty, first wash it with water and soap. And then you can just dab a little bit of betadine on it, and that's good enough for minor treatments. Anything more than that, anything deeper than that, your first aid will always be to wash that area, make it clean, see how bad it is, and then based on that, if it's a really tiny scratch and it's nothing major, then you can go ahead and just use betadine. If it is a bite, however, do the same thing with the wound, but also remember, if you can manage to get hold of a vet to give an anti-rabies vaccination for them, that will be really, really worth it.
all right. So
I have something to add to that. So, I've been taking care of about 40 street dogs in my locality since the beginning of the lockdown. And I bought this spray called Scavon, Himalaya Scavon, SCAVON.
Yes.
So not all dogs are actually comfortable coming close to you to actually wash them with betadine. So in those cases, we use Scavon, and that's worked really well.
So Scavon works well. There's also another spray called Topicure, which can also be used to help heal wounds. And yes, like you mentioned, if you're not able to actually get to them or touch them, you can use one of these sprays. Scavon has an additional advantage of preventing or healing maggot wounds. So in case stray dogs, especially if they come into contact, if they have any wounds that have been there unattended for a while, flies could sit on them and lay their eggs, and the larvae tend to eat up flesh. And this is something that you see quite often, although it is quite a disturbing sight. Scavon works well for that. There's also another spray called DMAG. All of these things are things that are easily available in pharmacies, and you could just pick them up and keep them on hand for your pet, for your streeties.
Thank you so much.
And Shanika. Yeah, my name is Ankita.
Yeah, Ankita.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes, please. I was coming to this. There are people who want to ask us, so please.
I will be quick.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have a dog, and actually I brought her here, but I could not turn on the video at that time because there was a delay. She's 5 years, 4 months old. And every time I give her a bath, and when we are drying her, I mean, rubbing the towel over her body, she gets really aggressive and she just turns around and bites my finger. I mean, not very hard, but hard enough. And I do not know how do we go about it. I don't believe, I mean, I should be scolding her I am very strong, and I tell her that no, this is not to be done. But that time she understands, but it just gets repeated every time we give her a bath.
Yeah,
So
So this is during the drying time, post
yes,
bath, right?
she likes the massage. Yeah, only during the drying time when I am just rubbing the fur for all the water to dry. That time she doesn't like it.
Got it. So okay, dogs are not verbal in nature. Just putting it there again. So dogs do not understand whatever we are saying to them unless we have worked on building a history to it. So for example, whenever I call my dog's name Russell looks at me, comes to me, or whatever, we start playing, or probably I give him some reward in any form, right? So there is a history to it, hence they understand, okay, the word Russell sounds like that means I will get something, probably, right? So definitely using verbal language does not really make sense. Now let's talk about this example, that for example, I like ear piercings, probably, right? I don't, but then yeah, for the sake of this example, I like to get my ears pierced. I go there with my own consent and then get this done. Now let's take this another example where I'm blindfolded and somebody just takes my ear and then pierces. What will happen, right? So here there is no agency, there's no power, or there's no choice of the dog that is happening in the bathing session. Probably, definitely, if my dog does not like to be bathed, let's go back to the simple steps of, can we start introducing water, just introducing water at a distance, and add some positive consequences. Then probably decrease distance, then probably get my dog's feet wet, just the feet. Probably add water to the shoulder, neck, probably, because now we are desensitizing my dog. Desensitizing is basically, so this is counter conditioning. I'm now trying to change my dog's emotional response to any trigger or any stimulus. It is the same with, for example, if my dog is reactive towards other dogs, other animals, other people, now what I want to do is basically change the associations that my dog has. So there will be a very systematic, gradual process, and the process is called desensitization, right? So probably, in order to manage that situation, can we leave the dog to, okay, this is bathe only if it is extremely necessary, right? So bathing is more of a convenience for us, it is not for dogs, right? Unless they're too dirty, right? So I like to think of it that ways, because for example, dogs don't like to be bathed, they like their natural scent, hence they roll in dirt, etc., right? So probably if you can let your dog air dry, if that is, because if bathing is too necessary, let's do that, let's try do that before you work on how do you want to work on changing the associations. Does it work? Did I
Yeah,
answer
I can understand what you're saying. And yes, that makes sense. We can leave her to air dry, but she just keeps running around when there is water all over the house, right? So that
you try to limit access to the areas where you do, because those are also zoomies. So zoomies, you might see there's a lot of energy in the dog. Probably when puppies, that happens during the evenings, or probably post meals, or whenever they are outside, they're so happy, all the energy, they run around, and this also happens post baths. So let your dog run around, and then let them settle, and then probably get them to what you want.
that is very helpful. Thank you so much.
Hey, Kirti and Dr. Shamika, I think we are running out of time. So I think we can take the last one cue, which I got in my DM, is how long can we leave a pet, maybe a dog or maybe a cat, unattended?
Okay.
For how long? Suppose if we have an office or we need to go somewhere, so for how long we can leave them at our places or somewhere maybe?
So okay, fine. Let me start off, and in case doctor, you have something to add to it, please do. So this generally correlates to the age of the dog in months. So for example, if it's definitely, I do not, I'm not promoting that we should never leave puppies alone. Probably if they are 6 months or younger, do not leave them alone. Do not try to. So in case, I mean, if there are situations where you have to leave them, probably can we look for a pet sitter? Probably can we have a friend over to look over a dog, or probably get them to a daycare or a boarding, or probably take them to a friend's place. Probably we can actually work out on solutions, on a lot of solutions, because what will happen is there can be a lot of other behavioral problems that you will have at hand to solve for. So yes, this will be also, if I can take one, because Unil here has been raising his hand for a while now. I'm so sorry for keeping everybody here. Yes, Unil, if you're here, can you? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So, doctor, I have a question for you. My lab is 10 years old and he has been diagnosed with arthritis in his rear limbs. So, as we talked in the beginning, that walks are important so that they can get some physical exercise. But in this case, like he doesn't like to walk a lot, and rest of the day he's mostly lethargic and like keeps lying around. So, is there anything that I can do so that like apart from alleviating his pain and everything, so that he is
Correct.
stimulated a little?
Okay, so a couple of things that you can do. One is you can still take him on walks, but let those walks be more leisurely walks. So he still gets to go out, and you can take it at his pace. So you don't really need to, speed walk him or anything like that. So it can just be a leisurely stroll based on how much he's comfortable moving. All right. And of course, this will depend on his pain levels at any given time. So if he is in a little more pain on any specific day, cut down the walks or even skip it entirely. Choose choose the walks based on whether he's up for it or not. And there are a few things that you can do at home that will make things a lot easier for him. So you've spoken about alleviating his pain. You can also do things like make sure there are a lot of mats around your house so that he always has a good grip on the floor so he doesn't slip or anything like that. Try to keep him from jumping anywhere, whether it is the sofa, a bed, or even his bed. So if you're giving him a bed, keep something that's level so that he doesn't really need to climb up much. If you live in an apartment or if wherever you live has stairs, try to avoid the stairs, take him in an elevator. So these are things that you can do to reduce the pain and like just generally manage his condition without really having to give him medication at that point. So it'll also reduce your dependency on pain medication that you'll need to keep giving him quite regularly. And of course, during this time, I'm sure you've already been prescribed with some joint supplements. So don't forget to regularly give him the supplements. Does that answer your question?
One more thing, like does the dog shoes that are like available in the market, which say they are anti-slip and provide grip, do they really work? Are they helpful?
Okay, so I'm going to go with 50-50 here in terms of helpful. We need to see whether it will be helpful for your pet or not. Okay, and in this situation, I would honestly advise against it, primarily because, like I mentioned, you don't want him to lose grip at any point. And anti-slip or not, if you're introducing apparel on him, you're essentially putting something that's a barrier between his paw and the floor. And it's going to take him some time to get used to that. And that is time that he could accidentally hurt himself by slipping or falling. And that could again increase his pain levels. So I'll say right now he's already 10. Let's not trouble him with the shoes and things like that.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, doctor, I think I got one more, and this is going to be the last. This is going to be the last. So I think there's a rumor is going on that the registration of pet dogs will be mandated under the BBMP soon. So do we have recommendations or suggestions on where to get it done and how to get it done? I think someone asked
Okay,
me.
I think it's still at a voluntary stage, right? At this point.
Definitely. But then at Super Teachers, we will soon be announcing a registration drive, and we'll guide you through the entire process. Once the details come in, we will be announcing a proper drive and the entire process that follows along.